Connie Oswald-Stofko. I publish the online gardening magazine for Western New York, BuffaloNiagaraGardening.com. And today I'm going to tell you about an experiment I started last year in mid-November 2013 with Sunchokes, putting them in pots, in containers, and how do they compare to having them in the garden bed. Now, Sunchokes are the coolest plant ever. They're native plants, they're easy to grow. You can plant them in the fall. In April, it'll look like you've got nothing. But by autumn, you'll have plants that are 10 feet tall. They'll have little yellow flowers, and the coolest part is you can eat the root. And the root tastes like a nutty potato. The plant grows easily, it spreads, you can have some for you to eat, you can give some to friends and to neighbors, to soup kitchens. But that is sometimes the problem, because it spreads so easily. You may find, even if you dig it up and harvest, you may find that you have little pieces left in your garden that grow plants in areas where you really don't want plants to grow. One of the things you can try is to plant them in containers. So let's take a look and see how the containers did versus the plants in the garden. It's Mother's Day, it's May, and the Sunchokes have been coming up for about 2 weeks now in the pots. I think they came up a little bit sooner in the pots than they actually came up in the garden beds, and they're all doing well with the exception of one pot which isn't doing anything, and I'm not sure why that is, because all the pots were bunched together in the same place near the fence, so I can't really explain that. If you're going to try this, you might want to try several pots just to make sure you get something. It's mid-June and the Sunchokes have gotten a lot bigger. I'm actually going to transplant one that was in this, it was in a fairly large pot, but I got these great big pots at a garage sale, 2 for $6, so I'm going to transplant one. We're out here on a windy afternoon in the middle of September. That fence is about 6 feet tall, and so these Sunchokes have to be at least 10 feet tall. The ones I have planted in pots in front of the house are healthy, but they haven't begun to bloom yet, and they're only about 5 feet tall. Plants in other pots have had different rates of success. This one is pretty healthy, even though it's short. I think it probably doesn't have enough room in the pot because I see roots growing out the bottom. This one is small, only about 2 feet high, but it's healthy. It hasn't gotten a lot of sun, and I probably didn't water it often enough. This one has a nice big pot, and I thought it would do well, but the leaves started turning brown. It started dying even before it started to flower, and I'm not sure what happened to it. So it's the beginning of November 2014, and let's see how the plants did in the pots. Now, these two pots were at the front of the house. This pot was in a sunny area, and it grew quite tall, and it's done growing. This was in a shadier area. It's not done yet. This plant back here is the one, I didn't know what I did to it. I remember what I did to it. I had some water left over from corn that I boiled, and I used it to water this plant. But I don't think I let it cool. I think I killed this poor plant. But we'll see if the roots are still good enough to eat. So how did these do? I've been dying to see. We've got some worms. We've got small Sunchokes. We've got a lot of Sunchokes. They did pretty well. We've got some nice Sunchokes in here, and there are quite a few. Now here is the pot that I wasn't sure how well it was doing because the roots are coming out the bottom. Let's see how these did. Ooh, we've got a lot over here. Here are the ones we just harvested. They're not very large, but there are a lot of them. So here's one that I had transplanted from a smaller pot. Let's see how this did. Whoa, we've got some large ones here. Yeah, we've got some good sized ones here. Let's go take a look at how the ones did that were planted in a garden bed. So as you can see, the ones that we dug out of the garden bed are much larger than the ones that were in the pots. But it did work planting them in the containers. I don't know why these are larger in the garden bed. Is it because I started with larger pieces when I planted them and put the smaller pieces in the pots? Is it because I didn't water the pots enough? Because the garden beds can retain moisture more, and perhaps these were in the sun, where some of my pots I know they weren't in the best growing conditions, they weren't in the sun. But we do know that it works, so I think you should go ahead and try it. It's a great way to keep your sunchokes contained, and plus if you find that they're not growing well in a certain area, you can move them around to a spot that works. Go ahead and give it a try.